Hello, everyone, and welcome to Developing Palates. I am Aaron Loomis, and with me, as always, is June Liu. How you doing, June?
Good, a little tired.
Yeah,
That's all right. I do this so that everybody could see our faces and know about these cigars.
that's right. Getting prepped for a little bit of IPC PR time, so
Yep.
it's always a good thing. Gonna do a little bit of downtime before we get all pumped up for that. So that's always a fun, enjoyable time.
Sure.
So today we are talking about the Bombay Tobak Gaaja. And this is a single vitola in the Toro format, 6 inches by 54 ring gauge. This is out of the Tabacos de Costa Rica factory in Costa Rica, which would make sense. The wrapper on this cigar is Ecuadorian Connecticut Desflorado Hybrid Mejorado 2004. The binder is Ecuador HVA Seca Mejorada. And the filler is Peru Hybrid Habano, Ecuador Criollo 98, Paraguay Hybrid Habano 2000, Dominican Criollo 98, and Dominican HVA Mejorado. So some very specific tobaccos listed in this cigar, which is always a nice, pleasant surprise when a manufacturer gives that much detail about it. And blended by Mel Shaw. Price point on this cigar is $15.50, and this cigar was released in June of 2016, so a recent release. So let's just get into our Prelight experience. So June, kind of take us through your experience Prelight.
Yep. So I thought the wrapper that you just said for that long accent, uh, it had a really nice wrapper to it. It was silky smooth, medium brown. The veins are incredibly well pressed, and it's almost like when you touch the wrapper, it doesn't even feel like there's veins on it. So, and the seams are relatively tight. Cigars packed full of tobacco with just a hint of give. Head is finished off with a well-applied double cap. It was a pretty deep double cap, which is nice. And Prelight aromas. Got pungent, sharp cedar on the wrapper, as well as white pepper spice. So nosing the foot, that same sharp cedar, white pepper, leather, and I got this. So the best way I can describe it is a sour stone fruit, perhaps like a sour cherry, but it's like an underripe cherry. When you bite into it, you get such a squeeze of citrus and sourness, and that's what it was like for me. So cold draw, same sharp cedar, some tongue tingling white pepper spice, and just that same sour stone fruit thing going on.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, wrapper was like a golden light brown. The veins carried a little bit lighter of a color and almost gave it kind of like a turtle shell effect. I always like that. It's kind of neat looking to me. The seams are slightly visible, but they're very smooth. And the cigar has a dramatic box press on one side of it, and then the other side was kind of a rounded box press. So there's a few different cigars that have that style of press. So it's kind of neat, almost like it sits flat on one side, and the other side's kind of would roll a little bit if you set it down on the other side. Caps are applied very well. The band has a simple artwork, but the colors go very well together and with the wrapper. The aroma I got from the wrapper was barnyard with a very mellow pepper, and the foot gave a sweet tobacco aroma. And then Prelight, I was getting a slightly gritty leather to it. So you just get, sometimes you take that Prelight draw, you get maybe a little bit of like small pieces of tobacco or whatever it is, but it kind of just added to that Prelight draw with the leather I was getting. So let's get into flavor. Take us kind of first third to final third. What was your experience like?
First third flavor profile. I had tongue tingling white pepper, a breadiness that was really airy, like perhaps like a really light brioche, and lightly charred oak, sugarcane sweetness that was kind of prevailed throughout the entire cigar in general, floral perfume, and some crushed rocks minerality. So on the retrohale, no stinging white pepper, followed by dry roasted nuts and sharp cedar. So just a really powerful retro in general. Finish consisting of lingering lightly toasted oak, charred bitterness, and white pepper on the rear palate. So, so when I got to like the 1.5 inch point, I had a intermittent sour stone fruit, kind of like what I had in that Prelight. So perhaps like a sour cherry entering into the profile. And also that sugarcane sweetness and the floral perfume amped up. But along with that, there's a charred bitterness that overshadow those notes. So body and strength within the first third was just solid medium for me. Moving on to the second third, similar profile as the first third. Starting the second third, the strength crept to a medium full. And it kind of gave me a little bit of a cloudy head and like a relaxation. So, not so medium full that it made me want to make my head spin. So,
Right.
Flavors of sugarcane sweetness, dry roasted nuts, airy bread, charred oak, intermittent floral perfume. The sweetness, it took the lead against charred oak in the second third, which is totally a welcoming thing. On the retro, still that same no stinging white pepper, followed by the dry roasted nuts and sharp cedar. Finish still consisting of lingering lightly toasted oak, the charred bitterness, and white pepper. So spicy, earthy finish, and body continued to be at a solid medium. Within the last third, so the profile started out with a really nice mixture of sugar cane sweetness, mixing with sharp cedar and roasted nuts, and like a bread of yeastiness, and that crushed rocks minerality. So all of those that I just said combined really well, and I was able to taste them and taste them in unison together, and then also taste them in isolation and depict them apart, which I really dug. On the retrohale, still no letdown of that no stinging white pepper, followed by the dried roasted nuts and sharp cedar. On the finish, still that same lightly toasted oak, charred bitterness, white pepper. But halfway through the last third, a lot of that sweetness and bread that I really like within the profile of the cigar in general, it left, and then it mainly left me with that crushed rock minerality, toasted oak, dry roasted nuts. But all of that was really dominated by that charred bitterness that I tasted ever since the first third. So unfortunate. So last third strength and body is still medium full and medium respectively.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the cigar began for me with like a creamy and a spicy cedar, and then a few draws in, I was getting a roasted nuttiness that joined in. Half an inch in, the spiciness mellowed out in the mouth, but I was still getting a good dose on the retrohale. And then a little past the inch mark, the cedar transitioned to a very creamy general woodiness, and the nuttiness seemed to go back and forth between like a roasted nut and a toasted nut. And it's probably not a big difference, but I pick them out as different, as different experiences. So that's kind of what I was seeing there. About an inch and a half in, then the nuttiness went away altogether for me, and the general woodiness transformed back to a slightly spicy cedar with a light cream to it. And the retrohale had also dialed back the spiciness, and then it was at a kind of a similar level to what I was getting in the mouth flavor. And then as the third came to a close, a little bit of leather was coming in to mix with the slightly creamy and spicy cedar. And the strength at that point was just below medium for me. And then as the second third began, the leather and the cream started to ramp up, and they took over the cedar as the dominant flavor. And then a quarter inch in, some pepper came into the mix and joined the leather and the cream. And the cedar was kind of like a minor player in the background. And then half inch in, the cream faded away a little, and that the leather was in the primary flavor at that point. There was still a little pepper and cedar in the background. At an inch in, it was a fairly substantial transition. The cedar changed to oak, and the oak was carrying a toastiness with it. And that flavor took over the lead. There was still some cream and leather in the background. And then an inch and a half, the oak lost some of that toastiness, but the cream remained in the background, so it was a nice mixture at that point. And then the retro hail was very smooth, slightly creamy oak. And then nearing the end of the third, a little bit of minerality was coming into the mouth flavor and into the retro hail, and the strength had increased a little bit to be right at medium for me. Final third, cream increased to blend with the oak, so it was a really good mixture at that point. There was still a little bit of minerality in the profile, and then at a quarter inch in, the toastiness came back to the oak to mix with that creaminess. And then half an inch in, toastiness went away again. So it was a lot of transitions here. The minerality I was getting that earlier now transitioned into a slight bitterness, but it wasn't a negative bitterness. It was just it was a bitterness that actually kind of enhanced the profile at that point. An inch in, a mix of oak cream and slight bitterness, it was working really well. And then a little bit further in, the oak gained a bit of a char, and the bitterness turned into a slight mintiness. And then an inch and a half, the char went away from the oak, and that toastiness came back to the oak. And then that's kind of how the cigar wrapped up for me. And the strength had increased a little bit more, just to slightly above medium at that point. So a really slight variation in strength as the cigar went along.
Your especially gauge of bitterness on this one was very different than me.
Yeah,
I felt like that bitterness and that charred aspect of it really dominated the palate, which that was a killer for me. So
yeah, I didn't get that. It wasn't until the final third, and it was actually a good player in the mix with the other flavors. So I enjoyed it. It wasn't something that was kind of detracting from the experience. So
yeah.
So getting into performance, burn and draw, what was your experience like?
Both burn and draw was absolutely amazing. And just zero. There's nothing to nitpick about it. So in terms of burn rate, I got 168 minutes of smoky time, which is fantastic. Burn line razor sharp. Ash held on tight, very tight, and solid 1.5 inches. And every one of those ash marks I tapped off myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. Like, there's some cigars that, like, you just know when you smoke it, and when you set it, on your ashtray in the middle of it, and after the draws, you just know that ash is going to be really tight, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see that in mainly like really hardy wrappers, like perhaps like a Connecticut broadleaf or like a Connecticut broadleaf perhaps. But this one did amazing. Draw was amazing. It had just the right amount of give so that I could take in all the flavors and nuances of the cigar. So absolutely stunning performance.
Yeah. The burn was a little wavy for me in the first third, but after that it was nice and straight the rest of the way. It didn't require me to pay attention to it at all. And just like you, ash held on 1.5 inch segments, and I tapped it when I thought it was ready to go. It wasn't, it never dropped off on me unexpectedly or anything like that. And I don't know if you experienced this, but tons of smoke on each draw. It was just,
oh yeah, good point. There was
lots of body. It was just so much smoke. You had all the smoke that you wanted to work with for picking out flavors and things like that. So it was a really nice experience there. Draw was perfect. Resistance right where I like it. I don't think there's anything really much else to say about it. It was just exactly how you want, or at least for me, at least the draw was spot on. So I nothing that I can say negative about the draw on it. And that's always a plus, I think, when you're talking about a box press, because you're compressing those leaves in the cigar. So sometimes you can get into a scenario where it's just they're pressed too much and you just can't get that airflow. But this is not the case with this cigar.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, what was your experience like with this cigar?
So as part of my pre-light ritual, I look at blend of the cigar, and I'm happy that the guys provided in greater depth.
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing those and knowing that I haven't really heard much about some of the tobaccos used in there, especially some of these hybrids that they're using, like the wrapper.
Mm-hmm.
I was a part of me expected to taste perhaps greatness, and if not that, uniqueness.
Hmm.
Um, but after smoking it, my palate mainly, gave me an earthy, spicy, nutty, and sometimes sweet profile. But I totally dig those. But there's nothing wild about that. And as I mentioned earlier, the charred bitterness that I tasted, it really dominated that profile
Hmm.
most of the cigar, except for the second third. So, um, I've only smoked one cigar out of this. Perhaps if I were to, smoke some more, and of course, listening to you, you didn't get that at all.
Hmm.
Um, I'm interested to see if that's a consistent thing. But anytime a bitterness dominates the profile of a cigar for me, I dislike it. I feel like it really overshadows a lot of the other notes. So, and
Right.
also, I mean, considering the price factor of 15.50 for the cigar without, you know, taxes, right? Like in California, for us, this thing's probably going to be like, a darn near $17 cigar.
Hmm.
Um, so it's pricey, and if you price a cigar in this range, you're basically competing right up there with the Sober Mesas, the Liga Nines, and in that caliber. So
Right.
I don't think that it quite mixes and touches that caliber.
Hmm.
But I still think you should smoke it because maybe you can find some unique aspects of all these different leaves and the hybrids that they're using, and get some cigar geeking out of it. So,
Yeah.
what about you?
Yeah, for me, the cigar had a nice mellow flavor and had some pretty interesting transitions. And the transitions were plentiful. So it really kept my interest throughout the cigar. It was always changing and morphing and things like that. So I found that interesting, and I just found it enjoyable. It's something that it really kind of engages you in the cigar, and you're really like kind of looking for what's going to happen next. Um, Pair that with a great performance, it just enhances the experience. You don't have to focus on your draws or making sure the burn is straight or anything like that. You can really just focus on the flavors. So I think that was a big plus here. Um, I think this would be a fantastic morning cigar, and it would pair really well with tea or coffee with cream. Um, and it's definitely approachable to any level of smoker. Strength level is right around medium, so it's not going to overpower anybody. People that smoke this might find it something that they'd want to go back to quite often. I know the price is a little high there at 15.50, but depending on what your price point is for cigars, what your frequency of smoking is, things like that. I think there's some people that might like really, really jive with the cigar, and it might be something that they smoke on a regular basis. But one thing I would add is that definitely retrohale this cigar because there's going to be nuances and flavors that you'll miss if you're not retrohaling. So definitely make that a point if you're smoking this to focus on that retrohale. Don't be distracted when you're smoking the cigar. And I think when you're spending this much money on a cigar, you're going to want to focus on it because you're not going to just smoke this out while you're doing yard work and stuff like that and
Yeah.
just smoke it to smoke it. You want to pay attention and get your value out of the cigar. So talking about scores, you gave this a 6.33. I gave it a 7.53. So how do you think the score jived with your experience?
I think the construction performance helped tremendously on this one because I rated burn and draw amazing.
Hmm.
But in terms of flavor profile, it wasn't in my wheelhouse. And no, I wouldn't even say it's not in my wheelhouse. I mean, I don't think anybody wants a flavor profile that's dominated by charred bitterness.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, it was that. I want to say we have more examples of this cigar.
Yeah.
Do we? Uh, so, I'm going to give it another smoke and see if I get the same thing that I did. But this example that I smoked um, it wasn't really my thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the score I gave it definitely goes along with the experience I had. I think it's a really good cigar. Um, and I think a lot of people will enjoy it if they get a chance to try it. So if you have access to it, definitely grab some. I would say more than just one. Um, because I think more often than not, people are gonna like it. So if you have the funds to do it and the access to it, grab some and enjoy them. I mean, I think they'll be good experiences. But don't pair it with something that's powerful or anything like that, because it's gonna roll all over the profile here. So smoke it with something that's not gonna do too much to your palate, because you'll want to be able to focus on the flavors that this cigar provides. So, any parting thoughts on this cigar?
Nope, I'm ready to go pour some bourbon tonight.
All right. So if you're just catching this review on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to us, but also check out the website, developingpalates.com, to see the full written review, all the cool pictures and stuff like that. Follow us on all the social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. I think that wraps it up for another one of our recaps. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jiunn.
Thank you.
And we will catch all of you on the next one.